So my guest today is Ty Roberts, and you have such a story when it comes to the care of Knoxville. You're a certified doula, and it's your mission is big. Your mission is to help women right here in Knoxville. So first, let's talk about, for those who just may not know, what is a doula?
So a doula is someone who offers emotional, physical, and educational support during pregnancy, during birth, and during postpartum. We really try to make sure that the moms are encouraged and empowered to have their own birth experience however they decide to have it. So that can be home birth, that can be hospital birth, but our goal is to make sure that when we arrive wherever we are, that you are feeling your best, that we're helping you with pain relieving techniques, that we're making sure that your voice is being heard, because in that moment, you don't really have a whole lot of opportunity or desire to say a lot. So your doula is going to be there to make sure that what we discussed in your birth plan that we do is being carried out by everyone that's a part of your birth experience.
So the doula is truly the voice. The voice for the mom.
The voice for the mom, yes. And I have found myself in that position a lot, just having to be that person that says, wait a minute, is that what you want? Because remember what we discussed, like, is this going according to what you desire now or what you desired before, but you changed your mind? Because birth plans can be very fluid. They're not set in stone. So whatever you decide you want, 10 months down the line or 9 months down the line, you can say, I don't want any of that. Scrap the whole thing. So that's what we do. We just make sure that whatever you decide to do, we're there to lend voice to that.
Tell me about the birth of Genesee Charitable Birth Services, because you're truly helping women who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford, that wasn't even on the plan, the game plan of having a doula.
Right. So when I first got certified as a doula, I started out with the whole idea of, I just want to be in the hospital. I just want to see a baby born. And there was a big romanticized idea of what I wanted to see and why I wanted to do it. But when I started getting clients that I was noticing a theme that they were not able to afford it, but they were scared to enter a hospital by themselves. And they were scared to go to the doctor, or they were scared to really say how they felt. I'm like, there's a theme going on here, and there's not an answer for it. And so I started looking, and honestly, if you told me 10 years ago that I would be running a nonprofit, I'd have looked at you like you had 5 heads, because that was not anywhere near what I wanted to do. But I knew there had to be something else other than just saying, okay, well, just everybody come and let's just do it for free and let's just not worry about anything. I knew there had to be structure to it, but I also knew that these women were really coming to me because there was nowhere else for them to go, that they can say, okay, I really can't afford this, but I need the support. And they were mostly Black women that had heard these horror stories about women going to the hospital and not coming out alive, or they had these experiences where they were being put in the hospital and sent there for weeks to months because something so simple as, I feel dizzy and no one's listening to me, and come to find out they have preeclampsia, which nobody caught because they're so busy saying, well, you just had a baby, it's okay, don't worry about it. And meanwhile, this mom is having preeclampsia because everybody thought, well, you can only get preeclampsia during pregnancy. And then we found out, no, you can't just get it during pregnancy, you can get it after pregnancy. And so the medical professionals that were supposed to help these women were failing them. And so we had a lot of moms coming to us, and at the time, just me, coming to me saying, I'm really scared, I don't have the money, but I need the support. That's when Genesee was birthed. And at first, it was literally just me. There was no board, there were no other doulas, it was just me. I'm like, I could do it by myself, I don't need a board. And it became, I was like, wait a minute, I may need to rethink this because I cannot. So that's when all the other components came along, and that really was how we were birthed. Just a board of people that were passionate about the goal, didn't have really any board experience. I had no experience of being an executive director at all. Didn't know what they did, but I knew that we had to do something. So I was the executive director, I was the doula, I was everything. And so that's really how we were born, just out of the need that I was hearing across the board in East Tennessee.
Hearing you say that, someone may listen to you and go, well, maybe that's in their heads, or maybe these are just fears that are just cultural, but the numbers, the data backs up what you're doing.
Yes. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to have a birth-related complication that would lend itself to there being more complications after the birth, well into postpartum, at least for that first year. And it's been shown that when Black women are treated or cared for by someone that looks like them, they're a lot less likely to either have to have interventions, to have any kind of other medical resources to come aboard during the birth. And they're more likely to have their wishes met because they have that support. And a lot of times what happens, and I've seen this just in my own birth, if you don't have someone there, sometimes people will act like, well, you don't know anything. You have no idea what you're doing or you're feeling or you're saying, so I can kind of get you to do what I want you to do. Or I can kind of spin it in a way that makes it seem like everything's okay so that you'll calm down. But really, no, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that my head is about to explode and something's not right. Like my heart is racing and something's not right. For instance, let's say a woman goes in for a C-section and she has anesthesia. If the anesthesiologist does not listen to her when she's saying, I can't breathe, it's likely that there's something wrong, but because they're busy thinking that there's nothing wrong as the anesthesiologist, if that anesthesiologist is not listening to them, that woman could die right there because literally no one took the time to listen to her. There was a case that I heard about a while back that the anesthesiologist literally was giving this woman too much anesthesia, and she died on that table before even getting a chance to meet her baby. And they didn't find this out until after, but this had been a pattern for this person over and over again. And who knows how many women had to succumb to that before somebody took a look and said, well, this is a trend. Why is this person still practicing? And so we had things like that, and there's just not enough advocacy to say, no, we need some policy change. We need someone else to put eyes on this because women are not being heard. And while there are other women that actually do fall in that category, Black women are historically the ones that are not heard the most. We're the ones dying the most. And like I said, if I can give you examples from my own birth story that kind of speak to that, it's just across the board. And like you said, the numbers are showing this. We're not making this up or just trying to be the angry Black woman that wants to be heard. The numbers are showing that this is a reality and someone has to listen. And that's why doulas are so important, because we're not just there. We're there to see and hear and advocate for whatever needs to happen or whatever needs to change. There was a situation here in Knoxville that I had to witness, and it broke my heart. And I don't think I've ever really fully recovered from that situation, where I had a client that was having a relatively long birth experience, and the nurses that were tending to her were not very kind. And it got to the point where I had to stand in between the nurse and the client to make sure that my client was okay. I had to literally ask her, are you okay with her touching you? Because they were coming in and just handling her. They weren't asking her anything, just handling her. There's such thing as informed consent. And a lot of people are not getting that. And so they weren't giving her that dignity of just saying, you are a person. I want to make sure your needs are being addressed and that you're okay. So I had to stand there and act as her physical barrier to keep people from putting their hands on her when she had not expressed interest. Ultimately what happened, because I thought, well, maybe I'm making it up in my mind. Maybe it's just me. One of the times that the lady left, she said, I don't want her back in here because I'm scared. I said, well, say less. It's just me and you. We'll get your doctor in here. We'll make it all right. And that's the kind of stuff we're seeing. And this was in the year 2023. This is not like 1955 or in 2023, women are still not being heard and being treated as women that have a voice and they have a right to equitable treatment.
Yeah. That's hard to hear. Yeah. That's hard to hear. Why is this personal for you? You kind of touched on your personal birthing story.
So years ago, this was in 1993, my oldest daughter's 31. And at the time that I had her, I was going through all sorts of things. I was in an abusive relationship. I was homeless. I was on public assistance. And the place where I lived, I ended up ultimately going to a shelter that was for teen moms. I was 19 at the time. And the shelter was in a city that was predominantly white. And everyone in that community, of course, knew about the shelter because it was the biggest house on the block. But they treated us like we were the women in the shelter. And that's all the way from the neighborhood to the medical personnel to the hospitals. So doctors' offices, same treatment. Hospitals, same treatment. So this particular time, right around the time I was about to give birth, I go to the hospital and I'm in labor. And they, of course, they have to do a cervical check to see how far dilated you are. And I will never, ever, ever in my life forget the young lady that came in to examine me. She came in, she never introduced herself. She looked at me as if I had just ruined her entire life. Like the look of disgust was so obvious. She never asked me, can I examine you? She never told me what she was gonna do because I'm 19, I don't even know what's about to happen here. She goes in to examine me in the most, dare I say, violent way possible. Like I'm already in labor and you're making it worse. It was the most uncomfortable, painful experience besides birth that I had ever experienced in my life. She, of course, did her check and she looks at me again as if to say, why are you even here? And walks out. So there was never an introduction. There was never an informed consent. There was nothing. Just look at me, examine me, leave. That was the first part. The next part was, as I'm giving birth, again, we'll go back to informed consent. There's such thing as an episiotomy. And they were going to perform one, but again, they never asked me that I wanted. So next thing I know, I'm cut without any kind of consent. Didn't even find out until after I had the baby that it was done. And after that, of course, it's time for me to leave, or my time in the hospital and time for me to leave. I was never given instruction on how to breastfeed. I was never asked if I wanted to breastfeed. I was never taught. Like there was never a conversation of, let me show you how to latch. Nothing. So I went home with this new baby that I didn't know what I was gonna do with her because we're living in a shelter.
And you're 19.
And I'm 19. And I'm already in a situation where I'm being abused. To now I have a baby to feed that I have no idea how. My desire was to breastfeed, but I hadn't been taught. So after a few days, of course, your milk comes in and I still don't know what I'm doing. So I'm sitting here engorged with a screaming baby that I can't feed except through formula. So when I think about the women that I serve, that is the basis one of the bases that I'm going off. I never want to have anyone else experience, not even a fraction of what I experienced, because that 31 years later, I can tell you exactly what the scenery was, what the people looked like, all of it, because it never left. And it was traumatic for me, but it also was theft because I didn't get the birth I wanted. I didn't get the education I needed or deserved because I'm a poor Black teenager that's on public assistance and I'm living in a shelter. And no one, I don't care if you're living under the bridge, you deserve dignity to be able to be heard and treated fairly, just like everyone else would be. So that's one of the reasons why I go so hard for Genesee, because I don't want that for someone else. And if we can make someone else's story not be my story, then that's what I'm going for.
Tell me a story that helps make it a full circle moment for you, for where you had your birthing and it wasn't the plan you wanted, to helping a young person or just one of your ladies that you all serve. Yeah.
So I will never forget one of my, and I won't say her name, but one of my clients, and we still keep in touch, and her baby is about almost 2, I think. She had been through a situation where she was not from here. She was living in another city, and she had had something really traumatic happen in her life, which led her here. And so she found Genesee, and she was a very smart, very beautiful young lady, and we kind of hit it off really well. And she started telling me what had happened in her life. And I wanted to cry, but I'm like, I'm not gonna cry right now because I need to be strong for her. But she had already gone through so much stuff. And then on top of that, to now have to raise her baby alone, it was just heartbreaking for me. So we walked out the process of everything I do with my clients. We did her birth plan. We did her counter pressure moves for birth and labor. And I could tell she was starting to open up a little bit, but there was still that fear there. We get to her birth, and she's still nervous, and I'm looking at her, I'm saying, you can do this. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. And I could tell, and it brought me back to my birth, because if someone had just been there to say, it's okay, I got you, you're not by yourself. And so everything that I could remember in that moment that I would have loved for somebody to say to me, I said it to her. And I let her put her head on my shoulder, just cry, whatever you need to do, I've got you, you're not by yourself. And so she made it successfully through her birth with no interventions, because she was scared about that. She was like, I'm gonna have to have an epidural. I'm like, no, you're not, you're gonna be all right, it's okay. And that was the thing, like, she did not ultimately want to have an epidural, but she was so afraid that it was going to have to happen, because she was so afraid of her pain threshold. Like, no, look at me. I'm right here. We're together. I've got you. You're okay. So we did all our things. She had her baby successfully, and baby's beautiful. One of the dreams that she had was, I don't want to not have to go back to school. I don't want to not have to miss out on my education, because this girl has graduated with her bachelor's and is working on her master's.
Okay.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So we sat back and we talked one day, and she said, you know, when you met me, I was a mess, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I just felt like my life had to just be downloaded into Knoxville unexpectedly. And she said, through our conversations, and you just reminded me of who I was and giving me the support I needed, I knew I could do what I needed to do. And it gave me the extra encouragement to go back and finish my degree. So I'm like, you know what? Okay. And it's in those moments when you're asking yourself, why am I doing this? Because every person that does anything that you imagine as big have those moments of, why am I still doing this?
Because it's work.
Right.
It's work, what you're doing.
And then you hear somebody say that, and it's like, this is why I'm still doing this. This is exactly why I'm still doing this. Because I want someone, through our interactions and through being a part of Genesee, to say, I can do this and I can do bigger. So every person that comes through our pipeline, I want them to know, you can do this and you can do bigger. It doesn't end here. If my life can be an example to anybody, from where I came from and where I am now, if I could come out of that and get here, and mind you, I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I'm definitely not there, then you can do big things, you can do hard things, and a lot of times it's all about the support that you have. So that's why we're here.
Talk a little bit about how, you know, what you're doing, your mission has spread even further than Genesee. You've gotten the county to buy in. You're working, you know, you're on state boards. Like, you really have taken this and elevated it.
Yes. That still shocks me. But it's my desire for Genesee to really expand and to be in places where we can be most effective. So we've got to make sure that we're seen enough for people to know, hey, they're here as a resource. And we can't do anything in silence. So we've got to be big, we've got to be bold, we've got to be loud. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. But a lot of the boards that I'm on, like even the maternal task force in Tennessee, if you never get a seat at the table, how do you know what's being put there?
That's right.
And a lot of things like policy and procedure, we have to be in those places to lend voice to, again, the ones that are voiceless. So it's more than just being on a board or being a part of anything with the city. It's about, okay, I had the opportunity and the ability that even if it's just a sentence, somebody gets to hear what Genesee is doing and why we're doing it. Because if you never know the why, how can you support it if you don't know why? If you don't know what's going on in the community, then how can you change the community? So a lot of the reasons why we're trying to be here, there, and everywhere is for one reason. because there are moms that are still dying. So we've got to make sure that our reach is far enough so that we can start affecting change. And it starts with us being who we are and spreading that out so that change can start affecting East Tennessee.
How do you get people to buy in that they need a doula? Because when I first learned about you all, I'll be honest, I always thought doulas were for women with a little bit of money. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have one and I didn't know about that. I'm being fully transparent.
Yes.
I was fortunate. I had 2 good births. I had 1 complication with my first. And a doula probably would have been wonderful to have. So how do you get them to buy in to say, we got you, we'll be there, and this is why we're needed, especially for these young ladies?
Yeah, and I definitely understand that, because until I heard about doulas myself, I didn't even know doulas existed at all. A lot of times it's about education and conversation. And you give the right person the education and have the conversation, they'll start understanding why. And to be honest, I've had a lot of people desire to have a doula that really still didn't know what a doula was and didn't know all the things. And they didn't really appreciate the value until after it was over with. And they're like, oh my goodness, I could have never gotten through this without a doula. Right. I had a dad, it was a funny story. I had a dad that when I met with him and his wife the first time, he came out of his room, because it was just her. He came out of the room and he walked by and just looked at me. It was like walking and looking at me like, why are you here? Just like examining me. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm probably in the wrong spot. And so we went through visits like that, 3 or 4 visits. And finally, the last visit, he came and he sat down and he gave me like a whole notebook list of questions. I'm like, what is this? The Spanish Inquisition? What is going on? He started rattling off every question known to man. I'm like, oh my God, this man don't like me. He does not like me. So we get to the birth, and she had actually had a cesarean the first birth. And she wanted to have a vaginal birth. And so we're like, okay, we'll make it happen. So we get to the birth, everything goes great, and we're talking, me and the dad are talking after the birth. He said, you know what? I was extremely skeptical of you, and I didn't really like you that much. He was like, you didn't say anything wrong, you didn't do anything wrong. I just didn't feel like I wanted you to take my place. But as time went on, he realized that's not what I was there for. I was not there to take his place. And he said, if I could stand on every rooftop in the world and tell people how much they need a doula, I would do it. He said, especially men. He said, because men think that if they have someone else there as a doula, that takes their place and cancels them out. And that was what my biggest frustration was, because I thought you were trying to take my place. And he said, no, I completely understand, and I'm so grateful you were there, because had you not been there, this probably would not have happened like this.
Ty, when you look back on this journey, what words come to mind?
Worth it. Worth it. Everything that we have put into this, and everything from the start of it, like even going back to what I experienced in my life with my birth, it all was worth it. You never want to have to experience hardship or storms in your life, but somehow it's going to be used. And it may not be used to change your situation in the moment, but somewhere down the line, it's going to be used, and it could be changing someone else's life. And so what I experienced 30-something years ago has now put a new spin on how things can look now. So I may not have been able to do anything then, but I can do something now. And just knowing that there are women out there that we've been able to impact and help and support and educate and just love on makes what I experienced then worth it to experience this now.
Why should this matter to everybody? I mean, we're talking,
right.
You're talking about that emphasis on Black women and helping to make sure they're heard. But why should everybody buy in to this mission?
Because I'm a firm believer that there is a ripple effect that happens when you change one life, when you stand up for one person, and especially if that person's a mom is bringing new life into the world. You change, or possibly can change, the trajectory of not just her life, but that baby's life. And not just that baby's life, but the community. So it all starts from giving someone a fair advantage and chance that can impact the community and that can impact in such a way that when moms are having these experiences where they're empowered and they're emboldened and they're living through their births, they can actually have a more positive outlook at life and start looking at things through a different lens. And it changes the trajectory for that child. And it helps them in the community to say, you know what? Things may have been bad, but they can be better. And when you have a mindset change, you can see a community change. But if there's never that first stop of, can somebody just see me? Can somebody just hear me? Can somebody support me? Can somebody love me enough to say, I'm gonna be here for you and support you through this? And ultimately, if you can save a life, which is what we're talking about here, then you can save a community's life.
I see you. I see you. You're doing wonderful things. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that you not only have the nonprofit side, but you also have the for-profit side.
Yes.
For women who may have seen this go, I don't think I'll qualify
Yes.
for the charitable side, but
Yes.
I think I could use this in my life.
Yes.
What do we need to know about that business?
The name of that one is Miracle V Birth Concierge, and there's a whole story behind that situation too. But it's Miracle V Birth Concierge. You can just go online, miraclevbc.com, and we have all the packages. And we have payment plans, so don't think that, oh, I see this and I can't pay it today. But we're there for it anywhere and in between. We got you.
Thank you.
Thank
Ty
you.
Roberts, you are amazing. Thank you.